Hey everybody, welcome to Takeoff with John Clark, presented by Makefield Putters. And with the Eagles heading to Buffalo, 2 games left, possibly getting the 2 seed, maybe the 3 seed, but the 2 seed is available. Let's go to Ray Didinger. Ray Didinger, welcome, the Hall of Famer. Ray Diddy, it is so good to be joined by you again.
Always a pleasure to be with you, John.
Yeah, and this is a great situation for the Eagles because they clinched the division. They know they get a home playoff game. They probably are going to have the 3 seed at least, but the 2 seed is available if they win their last 2 games and the Bears lose their final 2 games. What do you think the likelihood is of that happening? Do you think they can get the 2 seed?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it's – look, is it – what are the odds? I mean, you would say if you look at it, yeah, it's probably more likely that the Bears will get it, but it's by no means a lock. I mean, the Bears have to go and play the 49ers in San Francisco, and 49ers are playing for their lives here too, so that's not going to be an easy game. And then they have to finish up with the Lions, who may or may not be in, but those aren't necessarily gimme games. And I know there's a lot of people that are saying, well, is it better off to start resting guys and holding back? And no, I say you go for it. If it's in play, I think it's definitely worth going for because everybody knows the home field advantage that the Eagles have at the Link. And it's been a long time since the Eagles lost a postseason game at home. I mean, they're really good in that spot. So if they can get an extra home game, it's worth playing for.
Yeah, and their formula is when they go to the Super Bowl, they have had home playoff games, right? I mean, they're either the number 1 seed or last year they were the 2 seed, but lucked out because they hosted the Commanders in the NFC title game. But that is their formula to go to the Super Bowl.
Right, and it's important. It's important. Everybody wants to play at home, but certain teams, we all know, certain teams have greater home field advantages than others, and the Eagles have one of the biggest, and the record would show you that. I mean, you have to go back to, I guess it was the Seattle game that they lost when Carson Wentz got knocked out in the first quarter. His last postseason game, the Eagles have lost at home. So that's a while ago. And if they can get that extra home game here, absolutely a big advantage. Number 1, I think you can forget about number 1. But number 2 is in play. And as long as it's in play, I think the Eagles have got to go for it.
When you talk about the rest versus play your starters, we have all seen the Eagles under Nick Sirianni, and it's really under Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman as well with Doug Peterson. When they have an opportunity to rest their starters, they do it. Saquon Barkley could have had the all-time rushing record last year, and they decided not to go for it. So when you go into this game against Buffalo and then the final week, if it's determined they can't get the 2 seed, let's say after the Buffalo game, would you completely expect them to rest all of the starters, especially, considering the offensive linemen have been banged up this year? They've been dealing with injuries. You expect them to get rest?
Yeah, and that's a very real thing, and it makes perfect sense. If you get to that point, I would expect them, to probably rest in the final week because you won't have a bye week. You're going to have to go right into it, and if you can get yourself a bye week in that final week, probably. And there's also the possibility that, given the state of the Washington team, you might be able to win that game with your backups anyway. But I think this game here, I think you play it all out. Now, the only qualifier I would put in on that is if the weather is severe in Buffalo, which it could very well be. The long-range weather forecast calls for it could be a rough weekend up in Buffalo. If that's the case, and the field there's snow, there's sleet, there's ice, and the field is treacherous, even though they're talking about Lane Johnson being ready to play, I don't think I would bring him back. A guy coming off a serious foot injury at his age, his level of importance. If the field conditions and the playing conditions are as bad as they say they could be, I don't think I would bring, even though they say he could be ready to play, I don't think I would risk him under those conditions. Other than that, if guys can play, I would let them play. Because part of it is, John, this has been such a weird season for the Eagles. I mean, here they are, division champs, 10 wins again. I mean, they're in a good spot right now. But it has been a very up and down, crazy kind of season where there have been stretches where this team hasn't played very well. And I think you kind of got a little bit of mojo going right now, even though it's been against a couple of pretty bottom feeding teams, but you kind of got some things going now. I don't think now you want to take your foot off the gas. I think you got a really good test here. You're going up to Buffalo to play a good team that also has a lot to play for. I think you play this one to win. I know how they're going to do it. I'm not sure, but if I were them, I would go for it.
Yeah, and I would say, Ray, my opinion, because we've seen them not running the ball very well for certain points this year, also protecting Jalen Hurts. They haven't done that as well as they did last year early on in the season. The offensive line dealing with stuff. Cam Jurgens, Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata, I don't think he's been as good. So would you agree that the biggest X factor for this Eagles team is really having a healthy offensive line that can get back to playing similar football that they played last year and even in years past?
Yeah, for sure. Because I think a lot of the problems and a lot of the things we've talked about this season, you can talk about everybody's talking about the play calling, there's been talking about the quarterback and the A.J. Brown thing. Is he getting enough to all of that stuff that's been out there all year? And I get it. You can certainly talk about it. It's been real. But to me, the biggest factor, and right from the beginning, has been the health or the lack of health of the offensive line. They have had injuries. Obviously, Lane Johnson has lost a significant amount of time. Cam Jurgens has missed some. But the fact is, all across that line, tackle to tackle, they've all been playing through a lot of stuff. And they haven't been nearly as consistent or nearly as effective, or certainly not nearly as dominant as they were a year ago. And it's not because they're not good players. It's just because physically they've been beat up. And some rest, it would help them for sure. But it looks now like I think some of the changes and some of the new things and some of the new wrinkles that brought to the offense has helped a lot. And it looked the last couple of weeks that they got some things going in the offensive line. Maybe some of the guys are getting a little healthier. The offensive line's coming around. And listen, when they went to the Super Bowl last year and went on that run and dominated the way they dominated in the postseason, Barkley was great. Hurts was great. And all of that stuff is true. But it all started with the dominance up front. And that's what you kind of got to get back to. And right now, it looks like the offensive line right now is playing better than it's played in a while.
Yeah, and these last two games against the Raiders and Washington, obviously two defenses that are very bad. The Eagles have put up 60 points over these last two games. And as you said, they're finding some things. So would you say, if I was to say, hey, the Eagles offense is back, the Eagles offense is back, the running game is back, Saquon's back, the line is back, would you agree with that? Or would you say you need to see more? You need to see what they're doing now against a team like the Bills?
Oh, I like to see more. Because you do, even though everything you said is true, the last couple of weeks, they've played better. And offensively, you definitely see some things are sort of falling into place in a good way. But you got to remember the caliber of the competition. The Raiders are maybe the worst team in the league and kind of mailed that one in. Washington came out and played hard. They played hard for a half, but they just don't have many players. So the Eagles dominated the second half. And okay, they won the division. That's great. But they still need to show you against better competition. And the Bills are a good team, but the big problem with the Bills is their run defense. Their run defense has not been good all year. In fact, it's one of the worst in the league. Teams are running for an average of about 5.5 yards a carry against the Bills. And that's their biggest weakness. Offensively, they're very good. And their pass defense is good as well. But they have been just getting gashed in the running game. And this will be a good opportunity for the Eagles to get that running game going against the Buffalo Bills, against a good team on the road. You're going up against a team that's had trouble stopping the run, and the way the Eagles are running the ball right now, that could actually be a good matchup for them. Yeah,
and Ray, of course, you have your Eagles Encyclopedia out. It is the number 2 edition, right? The Eagles Championship, because there's 2 now. It's in bookstores. It's a hot book right now in bookstores. So this is a great question for you, the historian of the Eagles franchise. This 5-year stretch that they're on, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts starting, Jalen Hurts, 5 years starting. Nick, first 5 years. First Eagles coach ever to lead the Eagles to 5 straight playoffs. First-time head coach. Is this the best 5-year stretch, without a doubt, in Eagles history?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I really had to think about that, to be fair about it. I mean, the easy answer is, oh, sure, it's the best. Oh, absolutely. But no, I really wanted to think about it. And it is. Prior to this, it would have been the stretch of the late 40s. Now, we're going back a long, long way. But that team went to the World Championship game 3 years in a row, won it back-to-back. And they were the best team in football at that time. But by 1950, the team had begun to age, and within a couple of years after that, they had slipped back into the pack. But for 5 years in a row, couple of championship games, dominating win in last year's Super Bowl, absolutely dominating win against a 2-time defending Super Bowl champ. And to be where they are right now, yeah, I would say this is probably the best stretch, or if you want to call it the best era in Eagles history. We're living it, and if they can go back to the Super Bowl and go back to back, man, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen a back-to-back world champion in this town since the Broad Street Bullies. I mean, you got to go back that far, that one of our franchises won championships back-to-back. The Eagles did it in 48, 49, but this period of excellence, the wins, the level of dominance, again, I think is really impressive. Prior to this run, I always said that team in the late 40s was the best Eagles team ever. And the Vermeil team went to the playoffs 4 years in a row, too. They went to a Super Bowl, didn't win it, but they went. That was really good. They've had some good stretches, but I always go back to the team of the 40s, the Bednarik, Van Buren team. But this team, what they've done, the way they've played, yeah, I would say this has been the best era of Eagles football, and we got to live it.
Yeah, it is. It is really fun to see, and I think the NFC this year, it is a juggernaut. You've got so many good teams, so many teams that could possibly be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. So, in the perfect world for you, Eagles hosting home playoff game, which opponent do you think would be best for the Birds? For them to come to Philadelphia, as far as Eagles winning the game, which opponent would you like to see out of all the opponents that are possible?
I don't know if you could get them, but I would probably take the Panthers. I would probably take the Carolina Panthers, and it may turn out. I mean, right now it's nip and tuck between them and the Buccaneers. Right now they have a leg up on the Buccaneers, but they haven't clinched it yet. I think that would be a really good matchup for the Eagles. Good. The Panthers have come a long way, and they're playing pretty good football. But the Eagles would have a big advantage as a team that has defending world champs, a lot of postseason experience, playing against a young team that hasn't been there before in Philly, in that environment. Yeah, that would probably be the best one. Of all the teams, and you said it, I think if you look at the NFL as a whole, John, the power of the NFL this year is in the NFC. The best teams are in the NFC. The NFC, I think, is significantly stronger than the AFC this year. And it's going to be a wild postseason in the NFC playoffs. And I think it's very wide open. I still think, I mean, even though right now they're a wild card team, but I still think the best team is the Rams. I really do. I know Seattle's sitting there with the number 1 seed, and maybe they'll hold on to it. But when I look at that roster and I look at that team, if you ask me who's the best team out there and who represents the biggest threat to the Eagles, I would still say the Rams.
And there's a possibility first-round playoff game at the Link. You could be seeing the 49ers or the Packers or a team like that coming to the Link. And then if the Eagles are the 3 seed, they probably would have to go on the road for that second playoff game.
Right.
So the Rams, you think, are number 1. Who do you think is the second best team in the NFC? Do you think it's the Seahawks?
Their defense is very good. And I guess the question with the Seahawks is, and this is whether they're home or away, we've always talked about the home field advantage in Seattle. And it's it's real. I mean, they're tough to beat out there. But to me, the big question about the Seahawks is Sam Darnold is their quarterback. Is he a guy you can trust in a really big spot? I mean, he had a really good regular season last year with the Vikings, and then he got in the playoffs and performed really badly. And that's always been his reputation. He's a guy that will play really well at times, but you can't really trust him in the big spot. Well, he might be the quarterback of the number one seed. It doesn't get much bigger than that, but is he up to that task? I don't know. I mean, you look at that team, that's a good team. They're well coached, they play well, and their defense is really good. But the big question is, can you trust their quarterback to perform in that game? I don't know. I mean, until he does it, there's always going to be that question. I look at and I know that was a hellacious game that they played Thursday night, that Seattle Rams game, back and forth. Sure. And I know Seattle came out and they won it. But if you ask me which of those two teams scares me the most, it would still be the Rams, because I think they're really good. And Matthew Stafford, who I've always liked, is having a career year. And if you ask me, playing in a big game, who would scare you more, Sam Darnold or Matthew Stafford? Matthew Stafford would.
And I'll tell you, you talk about the best quarterback in the NFC, it's probably Matthew Stafford this year. And then if you look at an Eagles-Rams matchup, if that was the NFC title game, I mean, the last two games that the Eagles and Rams have played, the Rams have got to be saying to themselves, we could have easily won that. Jordan Davis had to block a field goal for the Eagles to beat the Rams this year. And then last year, Jalen Carter just completely wrecked Matthew Stafford in the playoffs and their chance to win at the Link in the snow. So if you're Sean McVay, you're saying this Rams team was good enough to win those two games, but the Eagles came up with the huge play, a defensive lineman in each situation to save the game. But the thing about it is, I don't think the Eagles would have any problem going to L.A. to play in January.
No.
Whereas Seattle might be tough, Chicago might be tough, but the Bears, I don't see the Eagles losing to the Bears twice this year. I think that would be a big revenge game for the Eagles, kind of like Washington was last year when they lost the game in Washington and had the Commanders at the Link in the NFC title game. Is there a matchup that you think is most likely for the NFC title game?
If the Eagles get there, I have a feeling it's going to be the Rams. I really do. It's an interesting comparison that you make, talking about the Bears this year being a similar situation to Washington a year ago, who the Eagles had to play in the championship game and had lost to them and so forth. Washington last year and the Bears this year, to me, are very similar teams in this regard. They're teams that, if you look at a lot of the stats, they kind of don't make sense. You wonder, how are they winning all these games? Winning a lot of games right at the end on miracle plays. Remember how many of those Jaden Daniels kept winning for Washington last year, week after week after week, and a lot of them with takeaways and a lot of forcing turnovers and things like that. That's been the story of the Bears this year. With a young quarterback, Caleb Williams, hasn't been in these big spots before, but he's played very well under the new coach. And week after week, when they need a turnover, they get it. When they need a big sack, they get it. When they need a tip ball interception, they get it. I mean, they're living in that charmed kind of world right now, a little bit like Washington was a year ago. Now, does that translate into the postseason? Are they going to be able to carry that all the way to the postseason? Because people are they're saying they're fluky. I don't want to go that far. They have been a little lucky. I wouldn't call them a fluke, but they're kind of riding the same kind of wave that Washington did a year ago with the same kind of plays. Is that going to be good enough to get into a Super Bowl? I'm not so sure. And I kind of agree with you. If the Eagles had to play Chicago again, and most likely it would be there, I think the Eagles would beat them. I think the Eagles, if they got another shot at them, would beat them. I do.
Hey, I'm John Clark, and we are here in Bensalem, PA at Makefield Putters. And I got to tell you, we want to thank them for being our new sponsors of the Takeoff Podcast. And I've got putting issues when I get out there. I'm 6'5", and I had to get a custom putter. When I got this custom putter here, it changed my putting game. When it's wintertime and we go get jackets, different size people need different size jackets. Well, we got to get a custom putter for our size, our type of swing and everything. They break it all down for you. They build up the putter from scratch. They have all the data, the analytics, the statistics to get you to be a good putter. And when I came here to Makefield Putters and I started to use my custom putter, I got to tell you, I make it with Makefield. So next time you're on the course with Makefield Putters, go birdies. Now, I'm pretty excited, Ray, when you consider Jalen Carter is going to come back into this defense, the way this defense is playing. Jordan Davis has been a monster on the defensive line without Jalen Carter there. So Jalen missing 3 games after having the procedure on his shoulders. How excited are you? Because we saw what happened with the Eagles defense last year becoming the #1 defense in the NFL and what they were able to do to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And we saw them in the playoffs, what they were able to do to the Packers, the Rams, and teams like that. So when you put Jalen Carter back into this defense, and we all have to assume that Jalen's going to be a little better, right? I mean, his shoulders are really hurting him. He's gotten some time off. What do you think the prospects are for this Eagles defense, the way they've come together?
If you got Carter back, it'd be a big plus. And before he took this time off, before he got the procedure done on his shoulders, the last couple of games he played, he just didn't look like himself. I mean, he was playing, for the lack of a better term, he was playing like a finesse player. And that's not really his game. I mean, he's just a dominant, throw guys aside kind of player. But he just couldn't do it. He was trying to play through it, and he just couldn't. He wasn't nearly as effective. Coming back from this, you would assume that he would be. And you put him back there next to Jordan Davis, who, you're quite right. I mean, Jordan Davis is playing really well. I mean, I know that people over time were questioning, first-round draft pick, we're a little disappointed in his performance. He's not playing enough snaps. He's not making enough plays. But you can't say that now. I mean, he has stepped up this year, and he has played extremely well. And so you bring Jalen Carter in, you put him next to him. I mean, that's going to be a very strong 1-2 punch right there. And the other guy who has really become a player in this thing is Brandon Graham. I mean, who we weren't even talking about at the beginning of the season. I mean, we thought he was going to be sitting in a press box with us. And he comes back, and, John, he has played really well.
At defensive tackle.
Vic Fangio came up with this idea that, let me move him in to defensive tackle position off the edge, move him in there, and he gives offensive linemen a different look. Most of your defensive linemen, the tackles, are big guys, and Brandon is smaller. But I think because of that, his squattiness and that lower body strength, he gets underneath the pads, and he's a different blocking challenge for offensive linemen. And we've seen in the last couple of games, I mean, he gets underneath these guys, and he just bull rushes them right back into the quarterback. So for people who wondered if Brandon Graham could possibly come back and help this team, he's absolutely helping them. And if you get Carter back to get most of the snaps, and you have to just play BG, 10, 12 snaps, they're going to be good snaps. So, yeah, I think that in terms of the play of the front four and getting a pass rush, I think the Eagles are going to be – I think that whole defense is going to be very formidable in the postseason. The Eagles are here right now because of their defense. It isn't the offense. I mean, the offense was in and out, up and down, hot and cold, all of that stuff during the season. They kind of got it going now, and that's one of the reasons you can be optimistic. But the one thing, week in and week out, you count on that defense. And, you look back over the history of the NFL, John, defense wins in the postseason. The teams that have the defense are the teams that usually are standing at the end. And the Eagles have a really good defense, and they're playing really well right now.
Yeah, and Ray, it's really amazing because I'm looking at the Pro Bowl voting by the fans, and the Pro Bowl is going to come out tomorrow. Now, you don't have any Eagles in the top 5 of the fan voting. Cooper DeJean, he was 7th at corner in fan voting, but I don't even see the name Jordan Davis here in the top 10 of fan voting, and I don't see Quinyon Mitchell in the top 10 of fan voting at corner. So if I were to ask you, who are your three most deserving Eagles for the entire team to be selected to the Pro Bowl this year? Because the other 1/3 will be coaches voting, and the other 1/3 will be players, along with the 1/3 of the fans. So the fans, not mentioning Jordan Davis or Quinyon Mitchell, who do you think your top three are?
Are you including offense too, or is this just defense?
Yeah.
Offense. Quinyon Mitchell would certainly be number one. John, I don't know if there's a corner in the league that's playing better than he is. I mean, he's a young guy. He's only in his second year. He keeps a low profile, doesn't get much publicity, but damn, he is good. I mean, week in and week out, he is really good. And you look at the breakdown of the statistics of completion ratio to his area, to his guy. I mean, he's I don't think there's anybody out there playing his position better than he is. So he'd be my number one. I don't know how you evaluate Didinger. I don't know how you would evaluate a slot corner. I guess you got to count him as a corner. He might be my number two. He might be my number two. And on the defensive line, I might actually lean towards Jordan Davis. Because Jalen Carter is, I mean, he is your big guy up there. I mean, he's your number one guy, and everybody saw last year what he could be. But this year has not been a great year for him, and it's because he's been playing through injuries. I understand that. But if you were grading week by week over the course of the season, you would probably have to give a higher grade to Jordan Davis this year because he's played every game. He's playing a ton of snaps. And when Carter couldn't go, Davis stepped up and owned the middle. So, yeah, I would probably say him. But there's no way they cannot put Quinyon Mitchell in a Pro Bowl. I mean, he's just playing too well. And the Eagles are in a very enviable spot because those two kids who are now only in their second year they're not just good players, they are elite players in their second year. And they're only going to get better.
Ray, I am in complete agreement with you. They are my top three on the Eagles, and I think it's amazing. They're all on their rookie deals. So it really goes to show you how quickly Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in their 2 years here. Think about if they did not get them in the draft. They're not winning a Super Bowl last year. If their secondary was a mess or had the veterans coming and going like the other cornerback spot, I mean, it is absolutely amazing that Howie Roseman and the Eagles were able to pull that off, getting both of them, and that Cooper was still there in the second round. And then Jordan Davis, he's kind of like the Brandon Graham story where it took him a little longer to develop, but he now is going to get a huge contract, and he's developing into a player the Eagles have to keep.
That's a very good comparison, Jordan Davis and Brandon Graham, because the first couple of years of Brandon Graham here, a lot of people, bad draft pick, first-round pick, we wasted it on this guy, we should have drafted Earl Thomas. There's a lot of that kind of talk early. And then, Brandon got healthy and then got to play more and finally got in a system with a coach that wasn't changing the scheme every year. When he finally was able to settle in and play a natural position for him, then he just became a really, really good player, a good, solid, consistent player. And now, in the history of this franchise, an all-time player. That's what he is now. And Jordan Davis, similar kind of thing. Slow start, initial criticism, people questioning whether it was worth it at the first round, and nobody's questioning that now. One other guy I would add to it, who this year I think took a big step forward, was Nakobe Dean. I think Nakobe Dean, when he came back from his injury and got on the field, was when you began to see this defense really start to come together. Because he made them a much better defense against the run. And then he developed this other aspect of his game, which Vic Fangio started turning him loose as a blitzer. And he became a very effective blitzer and getting pressure on the quarterback. Now he's tweaked his hamstring, and there's some doubt about, is he going to be ready to play this week or next week? They need to get him healthy for the playoffs because he is a difference maker on that defense. They need to get him back on the field. And he's a guy that I think, similar to Davis, there were some questions about how big a player he was going to be for this team. And now I think he's showing you just how impactful he can be.
Well, the good thing is he told our Ashland Sullivan that he is good to go with the hamstring. So that is good news. And I love the comparison of Nakobe Dean, because it's kind of like what happened last year when Vic Fangio was able to put Cooper DeJean in that nickel spot. It kind of solidified the defense, just like Nakobe this year. And the one thing about those guys, it's the tackling. I mean, that's the thing I love about this Eagles defense is they all tackle. They all tackle so well. I mean, Cooper DeJean, he is the best nickel corner against the run. So I just love the way fundamentally this defense plays together.
Yeah, they do. And they have a coach who demands it. And they know exactly what their assignments are. They are so well schooled. They're so well prepared. You never see breakdowns in coverages. You never see big plays where all of a sudden you have two defenders looking at each other saying, well, I thought you didn't, where were you? You see that with other teams. You don't see that with these guys. And good for them. I mean, they're smart players and they know what they're supposed to do. But Vic Fangio has them prepared week in and week out better than any defensive coordinator in football. And that's been true throughout his career. This is a really perfect marriage almost of, the sage old defensive coordinator and a really talented, aggressive, hungry young bunch of players. They've come together and they've given the Eagles something pretty special right now. And that's the thing that makes you probably the most optimistic going into the postseason is that those guys are going to keep you in every game and give that offense a chance to win. And defense, it just wins in the postseason. It always has and it always will.
Good point. And before I let you go, I want to ask you one other question. And it's about what they're doing on offense, because we've seen some things this year that just weren't working. They weren't clicking. Jalen Hurts was talking about the sequencing and the rhythm, which is play calling. How impressed have you been with kind of an evolution here with this Eagles offense? I had Greg Olson on my podcast last week, and he talked about how they've changed up the way they run the ball with more inside zone. Then the passing concepts, we've seen a lot of change with the passing concepts and really the passing scheme. So how impressed are you that they've kind of, I don't want to say settled on some things, but they've evolved and they've found some things maybe they can hang their hat on?
Yeah, I think you describe it well. I mean, that's kind of what they've done. And early this year, I mean, nobody down there, none of the coach, they didn't want to hear it. But when people's talked about this offense is predictable. And of course they dismissed, no, we're not. Yeah, you were. Yes, you were. And it was a truism. And they were just stuck in that shotgun formation. There was no motion. There was no deception. There was no, for the lack of a better term, nuance to it. They were a very easy team to prepare for, and they were an easy team to play against. And when you combine that with some of the injuries you had in the offensive line and the fact that those guys are struggling up front and the team's insistence on trying to force the ball through Barkley like it did last year, the offense just bogged down. And the passing game got very limited. It was all sort of single go routes on the outside. There was now, and I think it sort of goes back to when things really hit the wall a couple weeks ago. And there was the talk that Nick Sirianni had gotten a little bit more involved. And you do see a difference. And even the game with the Chargers that they wound up losing, they did some good things offensively. They introduced some of this stuff, and it was really working. You could see it was really starting to work. But, Jalen Hurts turned the ball over 5 times, and you're not going to win that way. But there were some things that you saw in that game that, if they can just eliminate the mistakes and keep doing this stuff, this offense is going to look better, and it does. I mean, the inside zone on the running games, very important, very impressive. A lot of people in motion now. They're forcing defenses to think and adjust. A lot more pass routes that are combination routes, layering receivers high, low. I mean, there's a lot of stuff now that they're doing offensively that they weren't doing before. And the big thing is quarterback under center. I mean, those stats were there all year, that when you had Jalen Hurts under center, they were just better. They were just more effective. So you combine some of that stuff with the fact that they're being a little more willing to go up tempo at times. It's all starting to work together, and they're starting to develop the one thing they didn't have earlier this year, and that's a rhythm to the offense. We always kept talking about they don't have a rhythm. They don't have a rhythm. Well, they got one now, and it took some adjusting and it took some fine tuning of the offense, but they're on to something now. And you see Barkley is starting to look like Barkley again, and Bigsby's getting them some good carries when he's on the field. You're getting the ball to your receivers, and the big thing with Hurts is, and you can see this is part of the offense. The ball's just coming out of his hands so much quicker now. I mean, earlier in the season, he was holding the ball, and the offense just seemed to be in slow motion. And now everything's moving faster, and the ball's coming out of his hands quicker, and it's making the whole offense kind of come together and look cohesive for the first time. So, yeah, I mean, I think that right now, one of the things we've learned in football is you want to be the hot team going into the playoffs. You don't want to be what the Eagles were 2 years ago, when they got to the playoffs, but they limped into the playoffs and got knocked out in the first round. Teams like that never survive in the playoffs. You got to have momentum going into the playoffs. And for an Eagles team that's been struggling to find momentum all year, it looks like they found it at the right time. So, I think this could be, as you said earlier, I mean, this is a wide open NFC. And the Eagles find themselves right in the middle of it.
Yeah, it should be fun. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a Eagles Encyclopedia number 3 from you. You never know.
That would be nice.
Where can people get your Eagles Encyclopedia Champions Edition number 2?
It's in most bookstores. All of your bookstores or independent bookstores or your Barnes and Nobles. I did a ton of book signings. I think I did 18 of them. So I've got signed books all over the place. And so they're out there. And also, obviously, you can go online and order it from Amazon, and they've got it there too. But it's done very well. Really proud of it. It was a major undertaking, 540 some odd pages of Eagles history. But I'm really happy with the way it turned out. A lot of color photography in there that's quite beautiful. And if you're looking for a gift for that Eagles fan in your family, Eagles Encyclopedia Champions 2, I think will do the trick.
Well, that's fantastic. Congrats on everything you've done in your career, a Hall of Famer, and then the books, and then your plays, and maybe some things to come. So, Ray Didinger, have a great holiday. We appreciate your time, and you basically are the Wikipedia of Eagles history, basically. We should just rename it.
I appreciate that, John. Thanks. It's always a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
You got it. Have a great holiday, and have a great New Year, too.
You too, John.